let's move on to talking about trusting others and the emotions behind what it takes to um, be able to trust somebody else to do what they say they will, right? And also, um, I mean, I imagine we're also going to talk about what it means when you don't trust other people to do what they say they will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in my opinion, this starts with boundaries and your anger, right? Your anger is about knowing what's important to you, what you value, and being able to communicate clearly in a non-confrontational way, but in just a clear, confident way. I need this done by 3 o'clock. Do you think you could do that for me? Sort of a thing. So just being very clear about your expectations and your boundaries. I gave like a work situation example right there, but it goes in so many ways. But that's just one of the emotions necessary. Who wants to talk about jealousy?
I know. Well, I looked at my list because I was like listing out like if I feel trustworthy of someone, like jealousy is there, but it's a real subtle emotion, right? When I don't trust the person, my jealousy is really loud. So it's there in both times. It's just a different intensity. So when I do trust them, jealousy is just sort of like, yes, I've assessed everything alongside of anger. This is okay. And then there's also a little bit of that intuition, fear of, yeah, no, this feels okay. We right now in this moment, this feels like the right decision. If it's off and I don't trust the person, that's where I feel a really loud hit of jealousy. It's really sort of, and a strong anger.
Mm.
It's a much more forceful, from my experience, I have a much more forceful reaction when I don't trust the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same for me, and it could be envy too, depending on the situation. Like if it's an interpersonal, or if it's I was thinking about getting like a service done, like bringing my car to a mechanic and kind of gauging like, wait a minute, what's going on with them, and realizing that I don't trust them, and it's I think envy plays a big part in like alerting me to like something being off. And I think it is so connected to being able to set boundaries and make clear expectations and requests. But there is a limit, right? There's at some point where the other person has to meet you, and sometimes there isn't going to be a kind of even place where both people have this kind of subconscious understanding of where they should meet, you know, and that's of course where all the challenges come in. Um, but the fear and the anxiety too, I think plays in, because it's like, okay, if I trust this person, if I take a chance, is that down the line, like, is that going to is it safe for me to take a chance? And I guess that goes back to like trusting oneself too. But it's like, I can trust you as long as I know that I can trust myself to get out of this. If you don't, like, I could take a chance and see.
It's funny when you were just talking about the mechanic scenario. I was thinking there's also an aspect of perspective taking. So one of the 6 aspects of empathy, looking at what's their motive, what's their motivation, where are they coming from, and what do they want out of this? Do they have similar values as I do, or do they want something totally different? Are they only motivated by money, or are they motivated by trust, or what? Where are they coming from? I think that can be really helpful. And then, as Jennifer was talking, I was thinking about manipulation and how sometimes
Mm.
people will say one thing, but they'll just be doing it so they can get what they want. So it seems like motivation and manipulation are actually very close together in um, how people respond or react to situations, or where one person is wanting to trust, maybe, or maybe they are looking at this person thinking, can I trust you?
Yeah.
So
What
trustworthiness is really, go ahead, Jennifer.
so much. Well, I was just gonna add on to that when Sherry was talking about the mechanic. I have found
so many times in that situation, mechanic is a good example, where I don't think I trust the person because I haven't seen them do the work. Let's say that's the first time they've worked with me. I don't feel great about it. I don't trust them. And I have shame, which says, oh, you can't, you have to trust them. Like because they're offering the service and they're going to say what they're going to do. And it's a really funny internal balance that I have when it's a new service with a new person. And there is a part of me, there's a part of me that's, my shame says, there's a contract that says you have to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one I'm probably going to have to revise, I think, now that we're talking about it.
Well, that's a great point though, because it is such, and there's the idea of like, clearly they have more expertise than you do, right? And it's, so it's like that, I have the same kind of thing. And I think what I've come to do is I try to gauge their level of shame. And I think bringing empathy into this conversation is extremely important. And Jen, thank you, because it's like, I need to figure out like, what is their shame? What's their relationship with their shame? Are they going to say something if they have messed up, or if they're not sure, or are they just going to, like ignore their shame and just pretend they know what they're doing just to get my money, um, and so like I try to perspective take and figure out, yeah, like what are their motives, or really just what's their relationship to shame and empathy, like what, how much do they care about being honest with me, is my trust important to them, like kind of thing. um, you assume it would be, but that's maybe not the best assumption.
That's, yeah, I I think that's really wise. I think, isn't that what we're all trying to gauge people with? But especially when you say you're trying to gauge like what's their level of shame, um, that also goes with anger and boundaries, right? You're trying to gauge like, do you have the same value, place the same value
Yeah.
on shame that I do, on acknowledging what you do know and what you don't know, what you still need to work on? Or do you have something a little different? Do you do something a little different?
I think the discrepancy there poses real problems in more interpersonal relationships for me, where it's like, I think, I'm in a close friendship or a relationship, and there's an assumption of a shared values, or like certain shared values, that when that starts to go awry, or I start to notice discrepancies there, that's when the trust is really brought. Like, then it's like, oh, I don't know if I could trust you because you did this thing that according to my values I would never do, or I would do differently or whatever. And so that is really disruptive for trust, in my experience.
Yeah, really good point. So why don't we talk about when we want people to trust us, or what it takes to have somebody trust us. I mean, I think it goes both ways, right? You want to be able to trust other people. You want to know that you can trust other people. How do you know? And how do other people know that they can trust you? Like, what are the signals?
It's a great, I'm just sort of thinking about this. So in my own business, let's say, one of the things that I try to, especially with a new client, I will tell them that, I kind of give them a list of my strengths and then some of the things I'm not so good at.
Nice.
And I do that with the parents that I work with, and then also the children. Just say, one of the things I'm not really good at is spelling. You're going to notice this about me. And so I'm trying to be transparent about, my full self from the beginning. And we'll say, if this isn't working, I'm going to bring it to our attention if this isn't working. And that kind of transparency is what I seek in other people too. Like if they can bring a little bit of that, um, I don't know if it's honesty. I don't know if it's that they're able to hold to their values and speak about it, but I'm like, that's how I think I signal at the beginning of how I'm going to behave.
It didn't occur to me until hearing you explain that, Jennifer, but it's like you have to lower your boundaries in some ways in order to like share with them and be vulnerable, and so that's an interesting thing, because it's anger, which we often talk about in terms of keeping boundaries, but of course there's the vulnerability piece of anger, right? The internal sense of like, I'm good, and to to be able to share potentially, I don't know, people might judge you for these things, or, or potentially shameful things.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up shame. That's exactly what I was thinking, in that it's your shame coming forward and saying, hey, I'm not perfect. Like, hey, this is what I know about myself. But you're right, it's anger too. I mean, you value the relationship enough so that you're willing to bring this stuff forward and say and show, like, here's what I am. Here's what is possible with me. Here's what I'm not good at. Here's how I act, or whatever it is. Sort of a thing. I was thinking about this in the same sense of like defining my offerings, and like when I do consultations, it's really important for the people that I do consultations with to understand that I can be very blunt sometimes, and that I'm not good at putting things delicately. I might just kind of like drop the flower pot, like, oops, yeah, well, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're working with emotions, it's really important to understand how soul crushing that could be, to drop the suicide word in, or the hatred word or the panic word in. So that's something that's come to my awareness that I strive to share with new clients, so that they understand, like, this is what you're getting.
Yeah.
But it's a shame thing, you know. I think it's understanding and accepting those things about yourself that then allows you to be able to share it with the other people without feeling shame around it, right? Without feeling like this is something that's wrong with me.
Yeah, it's integrating, right? So it's holding both the things we're good with and the things that we might not be good with, and integrating that both of those are fine, and being able to
Yeah.
speak about them without shame. I mean, I think for many years, I spent a lot of years hiding from a lot of things, and holding up perfectionism, to try to make everything look and be perfect, and it's impossible, and so working it with being like, yeah, this is good enough. These are all the parts of myself. This is what it's like to work with me. This is what it's like to know me. And the parts that I still have a lot of shame about are the ones that I have to go in that they're like hiding from me, because then I'm hiding them from other people. And then the
Sure.
trust bond is just not as strong, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't trust them with it. I don't trust me with it. Yeah, which goes back to trusting ourselves.
Right. And then we
Well,
go deeper and deeper into finding those contracts and beliefs that are a little bit hidden, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, that we're hiding from ourselves.
I think a lot of people have a kind of inherent understanding of like the perfectionism is not anything any of us can actually achieve. And so I find people will trust somebody more if they are honest about their shortcomings, and obviously with that balance that you're talking about, Jennifer. It's not just like, oh, I can't do anything right, not to that extreme, um, but that, like, this is what I can offer you, just so you know, this is where I might have, some problems, or however it's worded, and that is often a huge important piece of enabling somebody to trust, because it's like you've already shown willingness to kind of admit something that, and work with your shame, I guess, is yeah, it just kind of keeps bringing it back there for me.
So it all comes back to shame. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate everything. We had such a good conversation.